again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Thursday night, which means I'm joined by John Gibson and Supermac. Good evening, lads.
Hi, boys.
Steve.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And we'll start with this, I guess, because Chippers has put this up. I haven't been able to cross-reference it, but Chippers is usually quite good with picking up some stuff off social media. I would imagine it must be a formal bid. £25 million bid for Pedro at Watford now.
I thought Peter Beardsley had retired.
It's not that Pedro. It is this young man, and he's an attacking player from Watford. Obviously relegated last season. Seems quite keen on the move to Tyneside. Looks as if there's a bit of leverage in this one. John, what have you heard?
Yeah, I think he was the boy that scored up here. I think
he was. That's the same fella.
Yeah, I think he scored up here. He's keen, and he will be, because he's Brazilian and he wants to play with Bruno and Joe Linton. So that's one of the reasons why he's keen. The second reason is Watford are no longer in the Premier League, of course.
Sure.
And that's influenced. He's only 20. I haven't seen enough of him. I saw him in that game to know how good he is. But if he's 20-year-old and he's commanding that sort of figure, it would be nice. Yeah, we're very, very persistent about them. But we're not scattergun, but we've picked out about 3 or 4 wingers and 3 or 4 centre forwards, and it's the one you can possibly get is the one we will get. I mean, I'm just pleased to be associated with players because it means we're still in there batting before September the 1st. Because if we ended up signing nobody after the 3 we got this window, I'd be very disappointed.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised as well, but I would be very disappointed.
Yeah, very much so, John, because it would put a huge amount of pressure on Wilson to stay fit. And at the same time, a huge amount of pressure on Wood that he has to score goals when he can't.
But then that's a bit difficult, Malcolm, isn't it? When you can't, that's a bit difficult, mate.
Yeah, you're asking for miracles really from either one. Wilson stay fit and
yes, you are.
And Wood to score goals.
You are. In an ideal world, we need Steve to get at least 2 in, and maybe 3. But we need to get at least 2 in. I would like a winger and a centre forward for starters. Whether we have that midfielder that goes on and scores goals is another matter. But you would certainly want a winger and a centre forward in before September the 1st.
Sure. There never seems to be any further mention of Newcastle having an interest in Bruno's old teammate,
No, I know the lad you mean, who come up and stayed at Bruno's house and was pitching a black and white shirt, etc.
That's it, yeah. And
we go through a spell.
He's at Leo, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, we were after him. We had the real hot spell with Maddison, etc., and then the situation changes because we don't get the break we want. I mean, every day we're on a countdown now, aren't we? Every day that goes by is one day nearer September the 1st. And, it may be that we have numbers. You could say that we've got St. Maximum and Almiron and Fraser and Murphy. But that ain't good enough for me. You may say we've got Wilson, who doesn't stay fit, and Wood. But that ain't good enough for me.
No, absolutely.
It's not just a matter of numbers, it's a matter of quality.
Interesting. Michael says he watched Ramos's 60 minutes last night and Pedro's 75 minutes against Burnley. I've watched other games from both. My conclusion is that Ramos is a fox in the box, but offers not a lot outside the area. whereas Pedro is probably the complete opposite. He'll offer more outside the box, but needs to work on getting in positions to score. So be nice if we could sign both of them, which is what John would like.
Or blend them into one.
I was going to say, if we could make them into one, that would be even better still.
Yeah,
you know.
Fuse them.
Chip is celebrating the fact that Steve Bruce is still doing a cracking job this time at West Brom. Yeah, still no wins.
Well, I tell you what, we've got to give credit where credit's due. West Brom are in the bottom 3 of the Championship currently. Yeah. So there you go.
And booed off the pitch.
And remember that just before Steve Bruce joined them, they were in the top 5.
At least it's consistent.
That is a fact. And the guy was sacked because they were only in the top 5 and they wanted to go up automatically, and therefore they went to get a new manager to go up automatically. But you know, we shouldn't laugh at other people's misfortunes. Sunderland lost last night, but I'm not laughing at that. I mean, we shouldn't do that sort of thing.
You laughed yourself out last night after the result.
Let's look back at last week's game, lads. We always do on a Thursday. The dust's well and truly settled. A point at the Amex was something that we all predicted. We all went with a 1-1, a draw, and we got one. It was 0-0, a clean sheet, and a point in the bag. Got out of jail a little bit, although I suppose you could flip it and say that, you know, maybe we should add a penalty. Maybe Callum Wilson's goal was legitimate.
No.
What was it? What was? No. Well, we'll come to you, Malcolm. You say no, it wasn't. You're a striker. You would a goal scorer. You would have. You know, would you not have been claiming that was okay, or would you say high feet was right?
High feet I think was the correct decision. There were 2 heads quite close, and so it's a bit overhead kicks are sort of uncontrolled, and so I think the referee had no alternative but to give Brighton a free kick.
Okay, John, your view.
Yeah, I mean, we all 3 of us said a draw, so in the end, I was happy with a draw, with a point to go on top of Forest. But yes, we got out of jail to a certain extent. We didn't play well. But, you know, when somebody says to me, well, we only got a point because Nick Pope was terrific. Well, he's supposed to stop shots. That's what he gets the big bucks for. And he did it exceptionally well. I'm not denying that, but that's what the guy's there for. We kept a clean sheet. We haven't let a goal in this season. They're the pluses. The minuses are quite obvious. And it is that we don't look a goal threat often enough, even against Nottingham Forest. And Malcolm and I were talking earlier today. Up to 58 minutes when Shaw's shot was out of the blue and was terrific. We absolutely dominated the match, but we didn't make a string of chances. We haven't got a cutting edge at that end of the field apart from Wilson. And Wilson needs support because all those around him, if you think in terms of assists and goals, whether that's San Maximum, whether it's Almiron, whether it's Fraser or Murphy, whether it's a midfielder, whether it's Wood, they don't chip in often enough with goals or assists for that matter, which is why, of course, we're looking for a centre forward and a winger. We can improve that end of the field. We want to. We're not being impatient. I've sometimes got to remind myself that we've only been operating the way we are since the start of this year. You know, so are we sort of being impatient? Not really, because we're sticking with what's happening. We're delighted that we're not having to think about relegation. But like the owners and like the manager, we know the team can be improved. And we're looking to see that happen. And, you know, when you look at Newcastle spent X number of pounds this transfer window, and you look at Nottingham Forest, who I think have been scattergun, but they've just agreed £44 million. Did you see that in the last couple of hours for a midfielder? That, you know,
no,
from Wolves.
Sorry.
The Wolves midfielder.
The Wolves midfielder, for £44.5 million, Malcolm.
Dear me.
Yeah, and that takes signings to about 130 million or something.
Yeah.
And it
Which is
numerically, it takes
about 25 grand more than Fulham a couple of seasons paid at the beginning of the season and got relegated.
And it's 60. This guy from Wolves who is going to come is going to be their 16th signing this transfer window.
Sure. And what I would say is the fellas at Wolves, he can't have much ambition if he's signing for a side that's just been promoted and every opportunity to go down straight off the bat. I don't understand it.
Well,
really
according
don't.
to Paddy Power, scientists have predicted that by 2024, you'll never be more than 6 feet away from somebody who signed for Nottingham Forest this summer.
Well, you could well be right, mate. It could well be right. But the ironic thing, isn't it? The outside world, not us, but the outside world, we're thinking Newcastle United would do what Forest are doing this summer. The outside world, they were going on about us being the richest club in the world and all that. They thought we would be spending 130 million, 140 million like Forest, and they would have to scrat around. It's become the exact opposite. But I mean, it does seem outrageous that either got the greatest geniuses at spotting talent, because none of the talent is obvious apart from Jesse Lingard and Dean Henderson. By obvious, I mean well known. I'm not saying that they're great, but they're well known. Every signing seems to be a punt. Now it'll either come off and the guy will be the biggest genius, even better than Dan Ashworth, or they will flop spectacularly. And I mean, when they won 1-0, bless them, and I was delighted for them because I've got a soft spot from Forest from Cloughie's days, and I've got a soft spot for Cooper. But if you notice, when they won, the goal they scored, it was a clearance that bounced onto the guy's knee. Did you see that? The centre forward.
No, I didn't see it, John.
He didn't strike the ball in the net for a 1-0. The ball ricocheted off his knee into the net. It was their centre forward that got the goal, but it ricocheted off his knee into the net. So basically, they still haven't scored a constructed goal so far. But I mean, the crowd's passionate. They haven't been up for 23 years. Look, good luck to them. Because if they don't go down, it doesn't mean we are going down, because we're not. So good luck to them. But I still think they're in the frame alongside Bournemouth and probably Fulham, and yes, Southampton and maybe Everton. Out of that lot, you'll get your 3 relegated sides.
Sure, not Fulham. If you look at their first hour against Liverpool,
tremendous.
They were tremendous, but typical Fulham, they let 2 easy goals in.
And typical Fulham, they have another 37 games to go, Malcolm. As well as they did against Liverpool.
Yeah,
and Mitrovic, who had been outstanding against Liverpool, missed a penalty at Wolves, which would have got them another 3 points.
Yeah.
So that sure is.
Michael Pourmore says Miggy was our best attacking threat on Saturday. With all due respect, that's not good enough from the others. ASM in particular was awful. And Graham says, credit to Brighton. They pressed his back. We'll have a better performance ahead with a couple of options. So, I mean, ASM wasn't very good at all, Mal.
What? How on earth can he say that about Almiron, for heaven's sake? What did he do? Did anybody actually notice him ever in the penalty area, around the penalty area? Did he get any crosses in? Did he get any shots in?
Best of a bad bunch, maybe. That's the point that Michael's trying to make on the day.
Well, then the bunch must have been absolutely dreadful.
It wasn't great. It wasn't a great performance. But we're not doing Brighton the credit they deserve. Brighton are ahead of us by a country mile, and they're a bit of a side. Bit of a bogey team.
But in all honesty, yes, Brighton are a really good side. And I thought Newcastle's back four looked absolutely terrific. But at the same time, I was surprised at the stat afterwards that Brighton only had 54% of the play and Newcastle had 46, which for an away side, that's a high figure. That is a high figure. And so that was a pleasant surprise for me. And I think that Newcastle, that they're getting their game going up to the last third. And it's there that it breaks down, which is this need for further forwards.
I mean, the trouble with Brighton are they're very good on eye, they're very easy on eye, they ping it about first time, comfortable on the ball, etc., etc. But they've got the same problem as we've got. They can't find the back of the net, and until they get it, their centre forward every season, Brighton's top goal scorer is a guy that isn't in double figures. The same as our top goal scorer. They don't make double figures. And that is their Achilles heel. They need somebody to finish off the pretty stuff. How many times last season, and how many times will we see it this season, where they dominate games and it's 0-0, like the Newcastle game. Oh, it's 1-1. They can't finish sides off. For all they're so beautiful to watch. They're tactically aware. He's very astute, but they just haven't got a finisher. They don't score goals.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Michael Pomar just did suggest that I was right in my assessment of his point, which was he was best of a bad bunch. We did very little with the ball when we had it. That is a problem. We knew the final third is going into the window. The frustration from fans is we've done nothing to address it yet. Yeah, a bit of frustration on the old transfer front at the moment. John, is that understandable at the moment?
I think it is understandable, and I'm not at all having a go at the new owners because what they've done on our behalf, I'm so thankful for. It's untrue in terms of everything. The team, morale, the setup behind the scenes with Dan Ashworth and the guy over from America who's just come to join us, the coaching staff, etc., etc. But it is frustration because we flew out the blocks this summer with 3 signings. They were all defenders. We've signed 7 players this year, the January window and this window. 5 of them are defenders, a midfielder, Bruno, and Wood forward. We needed defenders. We were getting beat in the old days of Ashley and Bruce by 4 and 5 goals. We were letting them in the back. It was embarrassing. We needed defenders. We've shut the back door was swinging on its hinges under the old regime, and the goals were flying in. It's now firmly shut. We're just not opening the door at the other end of the park. And because we got the 3 signings we got early in the window, there has been this gulf of time where we haven't been able to get anything across the line. And it is becoming frustrating. And you know what? Football is a ruthless game, guys, isn't it? There's no question about that. You're judged on results of the weekend. You're not judged on whether you play pretty. Pretty football will not get Brighton an extra 5 points at the end of the season. Winning games like the game against Newcastle is what will get them the extra points. They're going to be judged not on pretty pitches, but on results. We are going to be judged on results. And in the transfer market, I'm sorry, life is tough, but boards of directors and chief scouts and managers are judged by what they get in the transfer market. And if we get nothing in the transfer market come September the 1st, there will be a lot feeling that's a bit of a failure. Because we do, and I don't think that will happen, by the way. I think we will get somebody, and I think it will increasingly be on loan as time goes on. And if you're going to get loan deals, they happen virtually in the last week of the transfer window because clubs keep their powder dry until then. They think, I'll let Hudson-Odoi go, I'll let Joe Bloggs go, I'll let Chelsea, the centre forward go, etc., etc. But only at the end of the transfer window, when they haven't had injuries and have managed to get a couple of people in themselves. So if you're getting loan deals, it's probably going to be in the last week of the season. And I think that's what will happen with Newcastle. But we've got to be realistic while we're grateful. And if we ended up with nobody at all, that would be seen as a failure, and it would be seen as a failure by me.
And by many others.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I would see it that way, the same as the fans, Malcolm, because we've got to get somebody in. We're light up there, and it'll cost us some points, and it'll cost us a couple of positions in the league table if we don't. You see, if we'd had somebody on Saturday that could finish, instead of a 0-0, we would have won 1-0 and we would have had 2 more points than we've got now.
Paul says, we've won at home and drawn away and have as many points on August the 18th that we had on October the 23rd last season. Where's the problem? Very true.
That's a very good point, but I don't want to judge Newcastle United by the first 14 games of last season.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at the situation now, not sort of comparing it to disaster time of 12 months ago, for heaven's sake. But you know, if there was somebody who could have made a goal or made a chance for Wilson, because he was offered nothing by anybody against Brighton, and he sticks one in, and all of a sudden the whole world looks different. But when you're struggling for goals, and remember, Newcastle really struggled against Nottingham Forest for the first hour as well.
I mean, I quite agree that we've got to keep a sense of proportion, and we've come an awful long ways from January the 1st. I mean, even after the takeover and after Eddie was installed and after Kieran Trippier was signed, which was a magnificent signing, we still had work to be done, and we lost at home to Cambridge from League One in the FA Cup at the beginning of January. But if you think of the progress that's been made from that Cambridge result till now, it's been ginormous. And we're grateful for that, and we're thrilled to bits. And nobody's losing an ounce of faith in either the board or in Eddie Howe. Not at all. Mm-hmm. The frustration is the frustration we know they will be feeling behind the scenes when they've repeatedly run into a brick wall in their dealings for a winger or a centre forward, but they're keeping going. Everybody feels the frustration. Nobody will feel it more than them. Nobody will feel it more than them. We are grateful. We stick with them. It's just we're being realistic at the same time and discussing what's the best for Newcastle United. And as I say, I think the loan market will come to our rescue between now and September the 1st.
Lads, I've got to ask you to say happy birthday to Keith Elliott. This should have been done last week, but I missed it due to the show being action-packed last week and us having lots of opinions. So if we can both say happy birthday to Keith Elliott, first of all.
Yes, indeed. Happy birthday, Keith.
Happy birthday to you, my friend. And I know it's now gone, but I hope you had a good one and you celebrated whatever year it was. 21, no doubt. 21. It might be for the second time, but 21.
And Keith's brother, Bill, gets into the Dog and Parrot to see me and Malcolm on a Saturday. And he said, can you ask Gibbo, did Supermac play against Aberdeen in 1971?
Bloody hell. Well, it's not one of my great memories of Supermac. But
I think it's before he made his debut. There was a pre-season friendly.
Yeah, it was a pre-season friendly.
But Malcolm can't remember if he played in it or not. So will you do that for next week, John? Could you
I've got the record book here from those seasons, so I will know the answer.
To include friendlies, John?
It includes friendlies, yes.
Oh, right.
Wonderful.
It includes the friendlies, so I will have the answer to that, definitely.
Yeah, because we We did go up to Aberdeen.
Was that the before your league debut? Was that when you scored and sent Etienne in a pre-season friendly?
Yes.
Are we talking about that pre-season?
That's right. That pre-season, the guy was talking of. Yes.
Well, I tell you what I might do in the interval when Steve starts running up the adverts. I might just nick round the corner from here and get the record book out and see whether Aberdeen was one of those games, because if it is, it'll be in there.
Because I recall a couple of seasons later in the Anglo-Scottish competition that we played in, we went up to Aberdeen to play there then. But I have that, I just got that feeling that was the first time I went to the Aberdeen ground.
I'll be able to look that one.
Yeah.
Which was the Scottish club? This is just intriguing. Which was the Scottish club where you played the friendly away? You set the Tudor on the kickoff, just nick it to me. You chipped the keeper, put it in the back of the net, and ran over to Jory and said, "Can I come off now?"
It was St Johnstone.
It was about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it was St Johnstone.
St Johnstone in Perth. That's right.
Right. And what actually happened was that as we lined up for the kickoff, and it was our kickoff, I looked up, and their goalkeeper. Do you remember goalkeepers back then? That they used to mark the 6-yard box with their studs in the middle, so that they sort of knew where the posts were just by looking at that mark.
They always scraped the ground around the penalty area situation.
Yes. Well, he had his head down and was doing that, and so I said to John, "Hey, just roll it a couple of yards in front," and which he did, and put it on my left foot, thank heavens. And so I smacked it, and there's the keeper with his head down and his foot's going away, marking the ground, and the ball dropped into the net. And their team was screaming at him.
And you, cheeky swine, asked if he could come off and be subbed because you'd done your job by putting us ahead.
Well, that's right, but it finished up a bit farcical, I think. It was 7-3 in the end.
Aye.
John got a hat-trick, I got a hat-trick, and I think Stuart Barraclough was the other goal scorer.
The funny thing is, Malcolm, you were just saying there, you said to Tudor, just knock that ball, a couple of yards ahead and I'll ping it. You had to knock it ahead in those days, didn't you? Now people kick off and they automatically face their own goal, Steve. The centre-forward faces his own goal and passes it back to the centre-half from our kickoff.
I know.
Because you can do that now. You had to play it into the other half. In the old days,
I just can't get used to it, John. And also, I can't get used to seeing how they take goal kicks these days with where they just knock it a few yards to a guy in the box.
Well, did you see De Gea the other day for Manchester United do that? And he got his pocket pinched and the ball was in the back of the net.
And the ball finished in the back of the net.
Real clever, isn't it?
Just because you could do it, it doesn't mean to say you have to do it.
No. And the point is now that because Man City, who we are going to see on Sunday, and Liverpool have 2 Brazilian keepers, as it happens, who are terrific with their feet and can play the ball out with their feet. Everybody wants goalkeepers now who can play like centre-halves and midfielders, and 9/10 of them can't. De Gea, who's seen as one of the greatest goalkeepers in the world, can't play with his feet. And if you go back to Man City, who we are just going to get, when Pep first come, their goalkeeper was the England goalkeeper, Hart, who was the England goalkeeper, great shot stopper he was supposed to be, etc., but couldn't play the ball with his feet. And he was got rid of at the height of his career by Pep.
Because he had him out as soon as he arrived, didn't he? Yeah. He dealt with him before he dealt with any other position.
Now, Man City and Liverpool have 2 goalkeepers that can do that magnificently. Most sides haven't. And by the way, may I say that Nick Pope, that is his weakness. He isn't good with his feet. But good gracious, nowadays, Malcolm, a goalkeeper that's good with his feet We never heard of it. You had to be good with your hands. You hadn't to be good with your feet.
Well,
now you've got to be good with your feet.
Could you imagine the ball at William McFall's feet? Oh,
I don't want to. I'm enjoying tonight. I don't want to.
Brilliant stuff. We've got a lovely comment here from Alan. He just says, John, your music memory show was one of the best things I've seen. Brilliant stories, memories, and days.
God bless you, Alan. And I've got a few more daft ones. Sorry?
Yeah. Was that the one on Elton John?
Oh, Elton John and everybody.
And everybody, right.
But Elton, well, yes, absolutely, which was my great passion. And I did it with Steve. I said to him, I thought, I can fill in some time. We'll do some daft like that. And that's gone down so well that I'll talk to you later, Steve. I've got a couple other daft ideas I'm going to hire.
Brilliant.
Stories that are untold, if you know what I mean.
I like this. I love it.
There'll be another one where that came from.
Go and get your trainers on, John. I need you to go and find that book now. I'm going to do the adverts. It's that time of the show. I'll do them a little slower to give you that opportunity.
Top man, I'll go and get the book and I'll have it when you return.
Ready, go.
Big thank you to our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead, NEA 4BQ. Telephone 0191 478 2730. Email Darren at his email address, darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or check out the website, www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at www.thegohd.com. They've also got a shop now on Nunn Street. And thank you to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to the lads at Away Day Clothing, and thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the Newcastle NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video. Click share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the YouTube show has finished. If you want to join the channel, you can click join underneath the video. Or if you want to become a cult member, then go to nufcmatters.com and click membership. Or you can use your smartphone and put your camera over the QR code. It will take you straight there. If you do it that way, then you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also give away free car stickers to people who subscribe. Simply email John at nufcmatters.com and he will post you on out. We also support the food bank on this channel. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you can find the virtual match day bucket, and you can make a donation to there 365 days of the year. Don't forget, for the rest of August, Peter Beardsley Soccer School is still up and running. Simply go to peterbeardsley.soccerschool.com for more information. And Malcolm and myself will be at the Dog and Parrot this coming Sunday for the visit of Manchester City. Pre-match talking will be around about 2:30 p.m. and after-match talking will be around the 7 o'clock mark. So if you want to come down, meet Malcolm, it is free. Kids are welcome pre-match and post-match. They do a nice pint and they do lovely food in there. So get yourself down. It's good crack, good bit of music, and a chance to meet Malcolm and myself and have a little bit crack with us. So, John, over to you.
There it is, the old book, the record book of Newcastle
Good
United.
heavens.
That particular time that I was keeping, and I've got it here. And lo and behold, we did play Aberdeen that pre-season. We played St Etienne first, lost 2-1, and that Malcolm scored. We then played Benfica at home and won 1-0. We then, on August the 10th, 1971, played Aberdeen away. We lost 3-2. And the team was McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, Burton, Natris, Cassidy, Tudor, MacDonald, Young, and Hibbett. And there we are. We lost 2-3. Malcolm didn't score. It was Tudor and Cassidy.
Right.
But we did play at Aberdeen that pre-season. It was the last of our 3 friendlies before we kicked off in the league. Mighty Gibbo's book from then come to the rescue. There you are.
Brilliant. And that's not in any of the official records either, because Bill has been kicking himself trying to find this. He couldn't find it.
Well, Bill must be pleased because I've got the record and B, he was right.
Yeah, well, there we go. Happy days. So thank you for that, Bill. I hope you're watching. Keith, I hope you're watching in America, and you've had a great birthday. And that is the job done that I should have done last week. And you got Mick Lowe's to say happy birthday as well. So that's been an extra one for you. Okay, Jasmine's got a question for Malcolm. Which clubs that rejected Supermac as a youngster did he later score against? And which gave Malcolm the most pleasure of scoring against? Which club?
I think where the real pleasure was for me was that having had a real stinker of a season, not playing wise for me, because I actually was the club's leading goal scorer until I think about 6 matches from the end of the season. And yet I had only played 6 games. It was utterly ridiculous there. But Bobby Robson, he was sacked, and there was a sort of senior player cabal that got together, and they was trying to safeguard themselves because Bobby wanted to bring in younger players. And he had started myself because there were a lot of forwards out injured, and I was only 18, and stuck me in, and I scored 5 in 6, and at the end of that 6th game, he was sacked and I was dropped.
Geordie double in the future there. Geordie double,
and there was no way I could get back in. It was, the pathway was well and truly blocked. And so the following season, because I got myself away from Fulham, and we played Fulham twice that season when I was at Luton, and we beat them home and away 1-0 in each game, and I scored both goals. So that was tasty. Getting me home back, yeah. And I was a Fulham lad, I from birth, and I'd supported them as a kid, but it was just a bad time to be there.
You swine! You got your own back on Newcastle United's under Gordon Lee after you went to Arsenal. You scored 3 against us down there.
Yes.
And you scored up here when Arsenal won again.
2-0.
I mean, I've never known whether to laugh or cry in those 2 games, because as I wasn't a Gordon Lee man, I thought, up yours, Bonnie lad, when that happened. But my team had lost, so I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. I did a bit of both, I think.
Yeah, I understand that, John. I've seen players score against their old clubs and not react.
Yes.
Not show any joy, not put their arm up or whatever. And I'm afraid I wasn't like that at all.
No, I noticed when I went to Arsenal, you swine.
Yeah. Yeah, but when being a goal scorer, that is your job. Scoring goals, not playing football so much, but scoring goals. That's what clubs wanted me to do. And so every time I scored, I celebrated it.
Yeah, I bet.
It's getting your job done and done well.
Plenty of questions coming in, guys. We're going to try and get through a few of them before we look ahead to the Manchester City game. I've just got to give this a push. I've stuck the link in the chat. It ends at 7:30 tonight. A chance to win this Callum Wilson signed shirt. Football prizes are running the raffle. We do promote the guys on the show from time to time. Entry closes 7:30 tonight. $2.95 a ticket. Get yourself involved in that tonight. The link is in the chat. And we will be announcing a big event tomorrow night. So keep your eyes peeled for that on the Amigos as well. Okay, let's try and get through some of these questions. This one, Steve Middlemers. How do you feel about Real Madrid being interested in Bruno? Is the pressure on the owners to sign quality for him to stay? John, sounds like a bit of paper talk, bit of mischief that. Bruno's going nowhere.
No, Bruno's going nowhere, but I'm delighted that they want him. It shows how right we were to take him. And I want Barcelona, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Liverpool and Manchester City to want all Newcastle players, because then we'll be in the Champions League and they won't go to them, they'll stay with us. If you've got good players, other clubs are going to want them. We want more good players. And I think that Bruno, not only would Newcastle not sell him, for goodness sake, the new owners are trying to build a new Newcastle, not dismantle him.
Yeah.
Blimey, Ashley would have had his helicopter already on the training ground, shoving Bruno in the back to take him to Madrid because there would be a profit in it. But no, I think it's terrific. It just shows we've got good players. Bruno loves it here. He's come here. He says it's the greatest thing that's happened to him. He's bought into the fact that this is a project. He's got on at the bottom rung of the ladder and he can go all the way to the top. Of course, there's mischief in it. Of course, there's this, etc., etc. But I'm totally relaxed about it. I wish somebody else was wanted by somebody, etc., because it will show what quality it is. And maybe when Real Madrid don't get Bruno, they'll go and take Chris Wood. And maybe we'll let him go.
Still trying to get rid of poor Chris Wood, you lads. Honest to God, I wish you'd leave the poor man alone.
He's a lovely man. He is a lovely man. But I would prefer a lovely centre forward that's not lovely but scores 30 goals.
Yeah.
Question. Be lovely to me.
Question for John. Can Gibbo recall his Friday lunches with Malcolm Allison? I used to snip their Cubans. I was 17 then, a young waiter. Sommelier.
Yeah. Happy days. I do remember that. And I was giving the old large cigars a bit of Humpty Daisy at the time. And so was Malcolm. I remember the start of those lunches. I'm not certain I remember too much about the end of those lunches because not only had we had a few cigars, but we'd had a few snifters as well. There were happy days. Malcolm was a big extrovert. And I've always loved extroverts and I've always loved chewing the fat. It was great, but and it was good because I remember the start with Malcolm Allison when I first worked with him. He'd come up here to do talking, and I met him just before the talking. I obviously knew who he was. He was a huge superstar. He wasn't quite certain who I was, and he must have come on with a bit of a hump. Anyway, he come here. He's sitting on stage. And I asked him a question and he gave a 2-word answer, maybe or yes or no. And then I asked him another one. I mean, nothing controversial, just about his career. And my questions were getting longer and his questions were remaining very, very short. And so in the end, I'm getting desperate, because I said to him, there's no danger that you might actually have something to say if I ask you another question. And when you say it live, you sort of looked at me when I said it live and thought, oh, hell, right. I said, because people have bought tickets to hear you, not to hear me, but I'm getting longer and longer and longer, and you're getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And he answered. And he was up here for a 3-day gig, 3 successive nights. And after that, he was absolutely terrific. He was always good to listen to. Some of his statements were outrageous and some of the things he did was crazy, and But he had some terrific stories about Fiona Richmond. Can you remember Fiona?
Yes, yeah.
I know you would, Malcolm, but I don't think Steve would. It's before
She
Steve
was photographed in the plunge.
She was
for
in the
Crystal
Altogether, yes.
Palace,
In
wasn't
the
she?
Altogether, in the
Yeah,
bath.
yeah.
In the bath at Crystal Palace, yes. And I think Malcolm was in as well with loads of bubbles. Not that Malcolm.
Oh, he was. He wasn't going to miss out on that one.
Was it you or was it Alison? I can't remember. Anyway, somebody was in the bath. And there was loads of bubbles and all that. It was a champagne and cigars. And there was a lot of fun done in some of those things. I mean, Alison was the George Best type of his day. Clever footballing brain. And when Man City won the title up here, before Malcolm come, round, I don't know, when I first moved in, 60. Oh, it was the season before we played in the European Fairs Cup and won it, because we qualified from 10th, but Manchester City on the last day of the season played at Newcastle, had a win to make certain they got the title. Manchester United were pushing for their title. And City won up here 4-3 with Sumby, Franny Lee, Doyle, a great Colin Bell, a great side. And Allison was number 2 to Joe Mercer, and he eventually took over. And that was the controversial thing, Malcolm, when he took over as manager and he hadn't Mercer to sort of sit on his shoulder and try to control him. Remember, they were going to win the title, and he went and bought Rodney Marsh, and they didn't win the title. They didn't win the title after he bought Rodney Marsh to put the icing on the cake. And of course, Rodney Marsh was either loved. I mean, Rodney Marsh, there was 2 bids in from that day. One was from Manchester City, and one was from Billy Smart's Circus. And Manchester City got him because he was a ball flicker and etc. Entertainer, but not necessarily an end product, as Malcolm would say when we're talking about Maxi. He was one of those guys, and you know because you played with him for England, Malcolm.
I did, and sadly, on the right-hand side was Mick Summerby. So they were teammates at Man City, he and Marshy, and they just went and played on their own. And I was sort of on the other side of the pitch. I just never saw the ball. Never saw it at all.
Is there any chance I might get the ball?
Yeah. But I always remember we were playing up at Hampden Park, and I was on the bench.
I remember it, Malcolm.
And Marshy,
I was there.
Oh, he started doing his tricks and nutmegging people, and sitting on the bench, I could actually sense the seething of Alf Ramsey, and all of a sudden he's just turned to me and he's gone, "Get yourself ready." And then he's turned the other way to Harold Shepardson and he said, "You get that clown off." And off came Rodney Marsh, and on I went. And he never played for England again. That was it with Alf Ramsey, who couldn't put up with his nonsense. But Marshy, dear me, before that Scotland game, I made him a couple of goals in my debut, and that was against Wales. And but he was a really lovely bloke, but he never looked to return the favour, never. But I had watched him at Fulham when I was a young teenager, and he was as an 18-year-old. Oh, he was unbelievable. He really was.
Oh,
incredible.
We had so many players in those days, Malcolm, that had so much ability, but never got the number of caps that their ability suggested they would get. I'm thinking totally off the top of my head, obviously, because we haven't thought about it. But I mean, I'm thinking of Rodney Marsh, I'm thinking of Alan Hudson, I'm thinking of Stan Bowles, I'm thinking of players I'm thinking of Frank Worthington, players with huge ability, but were like showmen. And really were there more for Monday to Friday in the nightclub than they were perhaps for the Saturday, apart from a little bit of ball juggling.
Sure, absolutely, John.
That talent was huge. That talent was huge, Malcolm. But when you look at their caps now, when you say 8 caps, 7 caps, 11 caps, they should have had 80 caps on ability. But of course, the two don't go together.
No.
The two don't go together, Malcolm.
You're right.
Got time for this one, lads, before we look ahead to Man City. Sean, he asked this the other night, and I couldn't get to it because the show got taken over with other topics. But evening, lads. In your opinion, are Newcastle just bidding on players to inflate the market price? Gordon, Ramos, Pedro, Maddison, etc., so that the rivals are priced out. Is there a bit of? Do you think that kind of thing goes on, John? You know, where you maybe bidding for players you don't want?
I think it can go on. The great danger of that is if the other club says, right, we'll accept the bid.
Yes.
if you don't want them, what happens then? But I mean, I honestly think that it's the other way at this given moment in time with Newcastle. It's the other way. I mean, I think they would have absolutely been decimated or would love to have got Maddison. I'm just taking him as an example. They would love to have got Maddison, but they're not prepared to spend a certain amount of money to blow everything out the water. You can get Maddison if you offer enough money, like 80 million or something. I'm being silly, like for Fofana. They are going to have to sell Leicester one player. They want damage limitation, so they'll sell one player way over the odds. Whether that's Maddison, whether it's a centre half for Fofana, which it's more likely to be, they'll sell one. Newcastle do not want to be that. And without boring you as to why, the reason actually is that fair play means that over 3 years you can spend X amount of money, which is based on what your income is. Now, Newcastle could blow all that in the first year, which is now the new board. They could go for Maddison, give 60 million, but what that means is the next transfer window in January of next year and next summer, they would have no cash to spend. They do not want to do that, so they're trying to keep some of their powder dry. It's like if you or I win the lottery, we could go out tomorrow and buy a super yacht, a jet, and a few rings and a few bits of jewelry. Then we'll wake up next morning and we'll think, well, we don't like that jewelry. Actually, it's a bit chatty looking. But you've got it, you're stuck with it, and your money's gone. And Newcastle are very aware of that, so they're trying to buy within a situation that leaves them with scope to buy again in January, but much more importantly, to buy again next summer. And it's not the amount of money they've got, it's the amount of money you're allowed to spend. When Chelsea were first taken over from Abramovich, when Man City were first taken over, there wasn't the restrictions there are now. You could go and buy £100 million centre forward, and if he didn't come off, and you were prepared to write it off and write a check for another 100 million for the next guy, you could do that. You can't do that anymore. And so Newcastle, so I think they actually wanted Maddison. They weren't trying to blow other people out. They actually wanted him, but couldn't, or felt they couldn't, do a deal which put their future in jeopardy. And they tried to construct the deal with payments and adds on, and it was never ever.
But also Leicester owe Newcastle money, don't they?
They were hoping that the deal could be constructed. Leicester, because they're in so much mess, will have to sell one person for big money. But they can see that they can sell a centre half for 80 million, say, to Chelsea. That's great. because you might be able to replace a centre half, Malcolm, a lot
Yeah.
easier than you can replace Maddison,
And
who
a lot
scores
cheaper.
18 goals and makes 15 assists.
Yeah.
So if you can keep him and sell a centre half for the big bucks, that's better for Leicester's
Sure.
point of view.
Absolutely.
And Newcastle have suffered from that and are suffering from that. And only time will tell if they're right or wrong. But I admire them for at least sticking to their guns. And it isn't a matter of being tight-fisted when you've got loads of money. You're not allowed to spend all your money. That is, as you know, Steve, that's the way the fair play is these days. You're not allowed. There's ways round it to us. You can juggle into positions. But what you do now does reflect what you do in 12 months' time and what you do in 24 months' time.
It's because there's such a lack of understanding amongst football fans in general of financial fair play. Because, you know, if you don't look into what financial fair play means, then you're sitting at home going, well, how on earth is Nottingham Forest spending all of this money? And yet Newcastle United's not. I thought we were the richest club in the world, when in fact, you need to look at what financial fair play is. And although Mike Ashley ran that club astutely and frugally, he did it for his own benefit because he was taking the money out and the turnover wasn't anywhere near what it should have been for a 52,000 capacity club.
Steve, you're absolutely right. When without having the figures in front of me now, when he took over, we were doing about 26 million over a financial year. When he went, 14 years later, we're doing 28 million. It only increased by 2 million in 14 years because he wasn't interested in that. That reflects now on what we are allowed to spend. Our turnover has been 26 million. So we're judged on 28 million. So we're judged on that. It was 26 million when he took over. That has been put into place, which is absolutely restricting us. We're being put into a straitjacket like Houdini because of that. Now, what Nottingham Forest are doing the other way, because they haven't been in the top flight for 23 years, and they see this as a one-off opportunity, and if they go straight back down, they're going to be down for another 23 years. What they're doing is the exact opposite of what we're doing. They're gambling. They're saying, we've got this amount of money for the next 3 years. We're going to spend it all now.
Yes.
And hope that keeps warm and filled on. So they're gambling the exact opposite way to what we are doing. And theirs is a big risk. That is like going to the tables in Las Vegas and chucking a bag of money down and saying, put that on red 6. And something else comes up.
Just what Andy said there.
Off you go.
Yeah.
So it is different.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just to follow on the Ashley thing, I talked with an advertising executive some years back, and he worked it out that with all the televised time from St. James Park all around the world, that over a year, the cost of, because Ashley had all the advertising all around.
Most direct everywhere.
Yes, that it was valued at somewhere approaching £1 billion a year. The free advertising that he was getting. So work that one out, for heaven's sake. You know, that was Sports Direct getting the sole benefit of it, and not Newcastle United.
Yeah, okay. We're looking ahead to Newcastle United versus Manchester City. Of course, Newcastle at home at St. James's Park, and it is a 4:30 kickoff. And myself and Malcolm will be at the Dog and Parrot pre-match and post-match. It's Sky Sports that are showing the game, so if you're not coming up, you'll be able to watch it on there. John Joe Shelby is sidelined. No news yet, of course, on Emil Kraft, Matt Targett and Ryan Fraser. Eddie Howe will let us know at his press conference what the situation is with that. Pep Guardiola's side began the title defence with a 2-0 win at West Ham, and then followed that up with a 4-0 home win over Bournemouth. Referee for Sunday's game is Jared Gillette. His last game at Newcastle was when he was in charge of the 2-1 home win over Leicester in April. And on VAR, which is often switched off, is Peter Banks. There are no train strikes on Sunday, which is great news. They're all on Saturday, of course. So hopefully you should have a better journey than anticipated. But do be aware that there will be revised timetables. So if you're travelling from any other part of the country to come up, do check with LNER and TransPennine, etc., what the schedule is, because there will be changes with them being on strike on Saturday. Lots of questions coming in about this. Do we go 3 at the back Sunday, Shaw, Botman and Byrne? Obviously, because Targett was out, Dan Byrne played in the left full-back slot. Who do you boys think will play left back against City on Sunday? Lots of questions coming in, lads. John, you first and foremost on the squad and what you think will happen on Sunday.
It's going to be very interesting, because if you presume that Targett's going to be fit, and he probably is, then there's either a huge decision to be made, or we go to a 5 because we're playing Manchester City. You would think that whatever happened, if Targett was match fit, that he would play, because he's an orthodox left back and they are very clever all over the park. Man City, all over the park. And the full-backs will be tested, as the centre-halves will, as everybody will. So you would want an orthodox left back at left back. I mean, Byrne did fine, that was great, but he's not a left back. And would you expose him there against Manchester City if everybody was available? I personally wouldn't, which is no slight on him, but he's not a left back. So then, if that happens and Targett plays, you've got to either make a choice, if you keep a flat back 4 of Shaw, Botman and Byrne, 2 out of 3, or if you simple way of answering that problem is if you play with a 5. But if you play with a 5, you've got to leave somebody out further up the pitch. It would probably be one of the 2 wide men right up top, because you can't go too thin in midfield against City, else they'll massacre. They'll probably massacre you whatever you do. But you've got to do that situation. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting if Targett's fit, and it's Eddie's decision whether he goes with 2, and if he goes with 2, who are the 2, or whether he goes with 3, which would conveniently put at least for one match, because next time we'll play in the league at Wolves, he won't go with a 5, he'll go with a 4. Sure. By nature, he goes with 4s. So it's going to be interesting what he does there. If you look further up the field, I thought Willock was poor again at Brighton, having been very good in the previous match. So there's decisions to be made. The biggest one is, if Targett comes back, is it a flat back 4 or is it 3 centre-halves?
Right. Personally, I think I would sit down, have a chat with Botman and say, do you fancy going man for 90 minutes with Haaland and just snuff him out the game?
And everybody would say no, not just Botman, but yes, I take what you mean.
Yeah,
yes.
But I think
you kidding me, pal?
Botman has everything that's required to take Haaland on.
Apart from one thing, in my opinion, Malcolm, and that's pace.
Pace.
Haaland is frightening. I don't think many people could match Haaland for pace. I don't think any of our 3 centre-halves, as it happens, Byrne, Botman or Shaw, have got the pace to match him. But that's irrelevant to the, that's irrelevant. We've got to go with what we've got. And by the way, I half-rate the 3 we've got now, so that was not a criticism of them. This fella's just got pace to burn. It's ludicrous. Haaland's got pace to burn.
Okay, and prediction, John.
The thing with that, mate, the thing with Haaland, just to finish, because I saw what one of the guys put along the bottom of the screen, if we manage somehow to snuff Haaland out, do we get a result? No, because they've got so many good players. You snuff Haaland out, And do you not think De Bruyne will do something? Do you not think Phil Foden
Yeah.
will do something? Do you not think Mahrez will do something? Do you not
Yeah.
think Bernardo Silva, if he plays, will do something?
Yeah.
You cannot get rid of one player from the City side and say that's them dead. You can't. What we're having to do, and I know it's prediction time and I'm waffling far too much, but what we're having to do is lose heart and say it's impossible. 3 years ago, we played City up here. Aguero, who scores as many goals, Haaland would love to score as many as Aguero, scored in 1 minute before bums hit seats, and we thought that's the end of it. We won 2-1 with a Matt Ritchie penalty. They still went on and won the league. That's how good they were. They will not go the whole season unbeaten like that Arsenal invincible side did. So they're going to lose sometime. Wouldn't it be nice if it was here? However, they have started the season quick. They normally start slow. It's October before they get going. They've started quick. They're already 4 points ahead of Liverpool. They are hugely difficult to play against. Prediction, sadly, and there's no hurt in this, I think we'll lose.
Okay.
It certainly looks like that, John. But I'm going to really stick my neck out here, and I'm going to because as long as we can get something more happening in the opposing box than we had against Brighton, I just hope that those who are playing up front with Wilson will be working hard to get a supply into him. I'm going to go for a draw and probably 2 each.
Who's going to score 2 goals for us?
Well, I'll tell you what, you've gone the same.
That's what I'm saying about getting supply into Wilson. He can do that.
Newcastle United 2, Manchester City 2, Malcolm says, and that's exactly what I've got.
Oh, is
2-2.
it?
I think it'll be a 2-2 draw, and I think Newcastle are going to cause a bit of a shock this weekend. And I think Newcastle could catch City cold with the atmosphere, and I think Newcastle might find themselves in front in this game. And just got that feeling, that Manchester City have had a good start, but against West Ham and Bournemouth, but Newcastle's a different option, especially at St James's Park. I think if this game was at Man City's ground, Mal, I think would probably both be looking at a defeat. But I can see where your confidence is coming from. Newcastle's on a high. There's something in that dressing room that's going right. They've got Botman. I think you might be right with regards to putting him on man-to-man. But Almiron will want to prove a point to Jack Grealish for that slur at the back end of last season as well. I think we'll run ourselves into the ground. I'm going 2-2.
You know what? I love you two lads because you're Fantasy Island guys, and we've spent years on Fantasy Island, and I think it's an absolutely wonderful place to live. Unfortunately, I think at 4:30 we're going to the world of reality, and the world of reality tells me that Man City win 2-0.
Okay.
And I hope dreadfully I'm wrong, but I'm going to speak to you two little so-and-sos next Thursday and ask you for your explanation. Then I'm going to go and have a gin while you spend 20 minutes justifying things. I would love to go further than you lads with 2-2 and say Newcastle win like they did when Matt Ritchie scored a penalty. That would be wonderful. I think if we lose to Man City, it doesn't determine our season. I think a lot of sides are going to lose to Man City this year, and I think most of them are. And they are, I'll tell you what, Scott Parker said that when they beat Bournemouth 4-0, that's the best team he's ever seen. Not the best team at the moment he's ever seen. Now, I know that's a huge statement, but Scott Parker was a good player. And he saw a lot of good sides, and he said that is the best team in my life that I've ever seen.
I tell you what, it's going to be a great game, whatever happens. This has been a great show. We've gone into extra time, lads. Thanks for joining us.
Sorry about that.
And I look forward to next Thursday when me and Malcolm are going, we told you so. Gibbo, have a good weekend.
I look forward to that as well, pal. I hope it's true.
Take care.
Wouldn't it be lovely?
It won't be.
See you at the Dog and Parrot on Sunday. Take care.
All right. Do enjoy the game, everybody.
Take care, boys. Lovely.